Hello, everybody. Daron Hall, City Manager, and today we are Cruisin The Burg with Monica Murnan. I'm kidding. Murnan, for those of you that were wondering how it's pronounced.
Always a big question.
I've known you for, well, really since I made it to town. My first memory is we sat with my wife and your family at the trivia contest and held our own very well. But no, you've always been really great to us, so appreciate you being on here. We want to catch up a little bit about all of your work at the state and all of your work for Pittsburgh and all of your work with your wonderful family. So probably just do us all a favor and talk about where you grew up and how you ended up at Pitt State.
That's funny. Yeah, it's I've watched everybody else on this, and most roads lead back to Pittsburgh State, don't they? Yeah. I was really lucky to be brought up by two incredible humans in Erie. My folks were very community oriented, and they were brought to Erie by some influential people to manage and operate a small nursing home. And they've moved the whole family there. My dad was the administrator. My mom was the nurse. She was the only nurse on staff for 25 years. My mom worked up until 2 or 3 days before I was born. I was there, and then she went back at 2 weeks and put me on one of the residents' bed in the first bedroom, and I stayed there till I went to kindergarten. But in addition to being very community oriented, they were, and in that role, they were just involved in everything: Red Cross, church, American Legion, the whole thing.
When did you know you were gonna?
I didn't know. I was gonna go. I was enrolled at WSU. And I was ready to go to WSU. I went to enrollment date, changed my mind. There was a guy that I had been dating since I was 16 coming over here. He was already here. And I did what I highly encourage all of our girls not to do. I followed a guy. And we're going to celebrate 40-year anniversary here a couple years from now, but we've been together 42 years. I lived right here in Manager Hall. I had lived up on the 5th floor on the backside, right over the vents of Ma Gibbs, so got the French fry smell in all my clothes. I was taken in by a lovely group of people. A lot of people listening will know Bobby Omi, Mrs. Wilma Minton, and Carolyn Didier. They're good humans, and I was a student secretary for them.
What about
Rob?
Rob, is he your age? Did you guys graduate
No, he's
together?
He's older.
He's
and
older.
So he got an MBA, and he got a degree, business degree from here, and then an MBA. And then Rob got the chance to come back to Pittsburgh as the manager of what they called the new Sherwin-Williams store, which is now the old Sherwin-Williams store. And it had been downtown for a lot of years. And a lot of people will remember it kind of, just over on the west side of Broadway. And they built that store down at 21st, I think it is. And we came back for him to manage that. At that time, I went and got a master's degree. But Alexandria is our oldest daughter. She lives in Kansas City, Missouri. She's vice president for housing at a company called Travoy, provides lots of important work on native lands. And then Francesca lives in Seattle, recently took the position of Director of Tribal Relations for the City of Seattle. And then we have Gabrielle. She is in charge of market intelligence for a wind turbine manufacturer that's based out of Denmark. We're really proud of our girls, and they still have a deep connection to Pittsburgh. They know where they came from, and Rob and I couldn't have been luckier. I really believe in infrastructure, and to me, infrastructure is defined as these beautiful sidewalks in these streets where you can actually, drive on them safely. But, not only water, but it's childcare. It's access to energy. It's access to the things you need to do whatever you want to do.
It's access to a decent job.
Yeah,
a decent,
yeah.
well-paying job.
People ask me why I ran for commission early on. I'd lived in the school world, and I saw how a good school board could be supportive of a high quality superintendent.
So was that before?
No, I didn't run. I've never been on the school board.
But you got on the commission in 12.
12. But that was, honestly, I saw that we were moving in a different way in Pittsburgh, and we were becoming, bigger picture. We had more opportunities that had come around our way, and I wanted to support that. And so when we think about these new facilities coming in town, we used to be chasing the big manufacturing plants.
Always.
It was always
Superior.
How do we replace
That's all I
Superior?
heard.
And how do we get a big fish? And I'm so pleased that we as a community look at this now as a strata kind of approach, just like we've done with housing. that I think that it's the only way to go. And I'm so tickled to see that now this new space that the Family Resource Center has opened a south location, the deep ties to that.
How many spots?
Because I think 58. Yeah, Anne and her crew have done such a good job of getting this up and going. Again, proving the point. It doesn't have to be big. I don't want anybody in this community to forget the vision of Dan Nineswander, superintendent at the time, Krista Postai, Gordon Elliott. Those people, it wasn't cool to talk about childcare back in the mid-90s. And they were talking about it, and they were believing in it, and they understood how it was part of infrastructure. They really made that happen. John Staten, another quiet warrior for early childhood.
So when did you get involved in that?
Yeah,
discussion?
I was right after the Pritchett Trust. So a lot of people may not know this, but when the Pritchett Trust first came to town, Rex Horning was the banker. The trust was set up, and they weren't quite ready to know what they were going to do yet. So the first thing that they funded first year was Krista and Dan had gone to the bank and said, hey, we've got this idea, and we want to put a whole bunch of early childhood services in one place, kind of a one-stop shop. Rex said, I'll give you some money to get the idea started. You do a needs assessment, you write some grants, you do those things. And that $25,000 funded my salary the first year. And I had been working at the school district for a hot minute. We had moved back here from Wichita, working for Judy Scudamore. I think of her every day. She was an educational guru. Scudamore was her name. Yeah, some might call her a badass.
Where did she work?
Judy worked. She was assistant superintendent at the school district, and then later, when she retired, she started the community foundation. And a lot of people watching will remember working for her, and that she could be a little intimidating, but it was always for the right reason, and she was always focused on making her teachers, her staff better. So the school district agreed to give the Family Resource Center, Inc., Lincoln School. And in August 25th, 1997, we opened. We thought we'd have maybe a few kids the first day. We were completely full the first day. And we had 3 staff members prior to opening. But I'll tell you, it never would have happened without a gal by the name of Becky Stahl. She was Becky Keith at the time. She was my counterpart, and she and I were the only employees until 3 days before we opened. I did some strategic planning through my job at Greenbush with the Southeast Kansas Recycling Board not too long ago. And, I'd become friends with Dr. Triplett under the trash committee that you so kindly invited me to be part of. And Dr. Triplett, I really respected his commitment to running this nonprofit here. It's very unusual that we have a nonprofit recycling center. So, the overarching goal is to get the community involved, recognize that we have this fabulous facility that we need to be supporting. But, really the second goal is to really stop and say, okay, now we're in 30 years, the recycling center. How do we look forward to things like curbside recycling here in town? Think about what we did here at the site of the old Family Resource Center. Dina Hallisey, who worked for the city at the time, she was brilliant.
Just overlapped with
brilliant gal. This is the site of the old center. Planted that tree right
houses
there. And she had this vision. There was a horrible water pipe right here. And I was pretty sure that nothing would ever be able to be done here. But the building had served its purpose, but Dina had this vision here for, what I said before, that you have to have multiple strategies on anything, and housing is one of them. And we have to have housing that is in this price range and all other price ranges. The thing that I'd like for people to know about Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas is it was based on mission, but it was also based on facts. That we had people who were not being served, and the state knew about it. When I came on commission, that was rough. We were still working on the TIF district here, and it hadn't expanded, and kind of had some ebbs and flows in that. There's nothing easy. With any of this, right time, right place, and look at the growth that we have now. And I think that's kind of the same with the casino. When I was on commission and we were looking at the casino, I never dreamed that I would be one, standing up in front of people saying we need a casino.
Casino, right?
That was never on my list, right? But what I really liked about the concept of the casino was the reinvestment back into the community. So like the work that they did with the Career and Technical Education Center.
Man.
You know, I was on the board when that first started, and those beginning dollars from the casino group, that they wouldn't have gotten going without that.
Okay, so first of all, why'd you run for city commission? Let's just start.
So I ran for city commission because honestly, it's not about you, but it's about supporting leadership in a way that is meaningful. You know, I could stay home and write the superintendent or the city manager nice thank you cards, but they need people to show up, listen, learn, and vote. So I had encouraged a lot of people to run for public office prior to that. So I just did what I had told other people to do. And I felt like we were on the cusp of doing a lot of good things. I was really worried about housing. I was really worried about poverty. And, that's how you improve both of those things is through infrastructure. I'm about the most middle of the road person that you can think about. But what's interesting is when I did run for state legislature in three elections, most of the time people didn't know if I was Democrat or Republican. And it didn't matter. They just knew that I cared about Pittsburgh. But one of the things I've been happy to be able to do is serve on some state boards, the Kansas Fights Addiction Board, the opioid class settlement dollars that have come into Kansas.
And those dollars come to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, municipalities get a large amount of those. But what I'm really most proud about that is that there's a really good infrastructure to get that money out into treatment, into prevention, into services for people who have come across addiction in their life. And I think it's good use of my time. Happy to do it. Also serve on the Kansas Children's Cabinet Trust Fund. That's the distribution of the tobacco settlement dollars. That's a lot of kids across the state of Kansas, and I'm really proud to represent Southeast Kansas on that board. So when Gordon Elliott and a whole lot of other really good people, Marty Beasley, the list goes on and on, raised Gene Bicknell raised money. Dan Minnis was huge in getting this new building. This was the old Census Bureau. This is one of the largest child care centers in the state, probably the largest child care center in the state. I'm so excited I watched City Commission this week, and I was so impressed by all the development here of these buildings downtown, because 15 years ago it was we can't do anything with them, and I appreciate and respect all the individual citizens who are investing their time and dollars. And
real money, these buildings. Yesterday with the commission 2 days ago, we had four different projects that people were putting $500,000.
Yeah, and people I knew that were like, we're into this. And I love that. Really pleased to see the progress with Washington School. The data supports that we need all the childcare that is currently being built. Yeah.
Okay, this is the Gorilla Rising. So that building, the best, is going to be 100 years old next year. The town is going to be 150 years old next year. The country is going to be 250 years old next year.
I didn't know
so there's a big push to have. There's a committee at Pitt Plan 150 or Pitt.
Oh, how
plan.
Interesting!
So people need to look out for that, because it's gonna let you be a part of. They're gonna try to do something every week during 2026.
One of the things that I'm proud of is the city's response to using sales tax dollars to support public safety. I think that's special about Pittsburgh, and I've been involved in several of those opportunities to look and see how we use sales tax dollars. When you think about it, the fact that all of our law enforcement can talk to each other, not many communities have that in our size, and so I think the citizens of Pittsburgh have been very, very thoughtful.
But the sales tax is an opportunity to say, and we have a half cent that we don't even have.
We still have that opportunity, and I think that's something that we should look at over the next several years. It's not about raising the sales tax; it's about using the mechanisms you have in place to match that with what your citizens say they want.
Well, I appreciate you for starting a lot of it. You were like, seriously, you started in 12. I was hired in 12.
Yeah, it was really close. Well, thank you for all your leadership.
It's been fun, and more importantly, though, that you just haven't given up after the city and your kids have moved away.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, you've got opportunities to do stuff, and Rob's probably
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about
He's getting close to retirement. Yeah,
But you
and
just keep giving, and we just keep taking. And
we
will never
get
stop.
back more than we've ever given.
So, what do you
we
think
wanna
the
keep
next
doing
5,
that.
10 years?
I think the next 5-10 years in Pittsburgh, I think we're going to see an increase in median income. I think we're going to see an increase in housing stock, which drives increase in median income. And I hope we see healthier kids. I hope we see kids with good, strong, resilient skills, that they have access to behavioral health services, as do their family, substance use treatment. I hope we grow some even more stronger, better, more resilient kids.